this morning, and joining us now is Democratic Congressman Adam Schiff. He's currently ranking member on the House Intelligence Committee, but he is expected to be the chairman of that committee after Democrats officially take the majority in January. Good morning, Congressman.
Good morning.
So before we get to what will change when you're the chairman of that committee, with all of this new reporting from Sarah Murray as well as other people, what jumps out at you this morning in terms of connecting the dots of Mueller's investigation?
Well, all the connections, all the dots, as you say. And when you look at it, the Russians hack the Clinton campaign and the Podesta emails. The Russians then provide all that information to WikiLeaks. Roger Stone then goes to Corsi to get information from WikiLeaks to get these emails. Corsi then goes to WikiLeaks through an intermediary to get that information. Corsi then gets back to Roger Stone with information about the Podesta emails and their timing. Stone then makes public statements about the timing of the Podesta release. Stone is in contact with Donald Trump directly. And then, of course, the emails are dumped at times that are optimal for the Trump campaign. When you look at that constellation of facts and all the links between these different characters, it's either an extraordinary coincidence or it's what collusion looks like. And this may be why the president so adamantly tries to deny collusion, because these facts are pretty damning.
Just to put a finer point on some of the things you're talking about, here's an example, okay? So here is an email from Jerome Corsi to Roger Stone on August 2nd. This is obviously before the election. This is even before the WikiLeaks materials become public. Word is, friend in embassy, we assume that means Julian Assange, plans 2 more dumps, one shortly after I'm back. Second is in October. Impact, planned to be very damaging. Time to let more than the Clinton campaign chairman, John Podesta, to be exposed as in bed with enemy if they are not ready to drop Hillary Rodham Clinton. That appears to be the game hackers are now about. Would not hurt to start suggesting Hillary Rodham Clinton old, memory bad, has stroke, neither he nor she well. I expect that much of the next dump focus will be setting the stage for the Clinton Foundation debacle. That's a lot of guesswork happening in that email.
It would have to be a lot of guesswork. And of course, the explanation that Roger Stone gave publicly, and I can't talk about his testimony before our committee, but that testimony needs to be provided to Bob Mueller for consideration about whether it contains perjury. But of course, the public explanation of Roger Stone is that he just surmised that there was information about Podesta's business that was going to come out, nothing to do with emails. Well, that's flatly contradicted by this email. And so you also have to add to the other evidence, all of this evidence of deception on the part of Stone, on the part of Corsi, on the part of so many of the characters within this drama. And of course, if the other allegation that The Guardian published, that Manafort was in touch directly with Assange and WikiLeaks, then that's a whole other order of magnitude of severity. And of course, it brings this right to the president's doorstep.
And of course, Paul Manafort has flatly denied that in a very unequivocal statement. But this leads us all to what you're going to do. So in January, when you take the mantle, as is assumed you will, of chair of your committee away from Devin Nunes, who I think it's fair to say you think has not been terribly effective as a chairman, you then will have the power to subpoena witnesses. You'll be able to call whoever you want. You'll be able to get phone records. What will you do first?
Well, I can't say what we'll do first, but I can tell you that we're going to do the same kind of prioritization that the other committees will do, and that is we're going to have to look at those investigative strands that the Republicans were afraid to go down because they were concerned what it might reveal, that are most important to the American people. We need to know, for example, whether the Russians have financial leverage over the President of the United States that's warping U.S. policy in a pro-Russian direction. We were not allowed to look at whether the Russians were laundering money through the Trump Organization. That has to be examined. But we also need to get a whole raft of documents that the Republicans were unwilling to pursue. And to give you one very flagrant example, as they were setting up that Trump Tower meeting, as Don Jr. was on the phone with his Russian counterpart to make arrangements to get this dirt on Hillary Clinton, there was a phone call sandwiched in between these communications between Trump Jr. and Agalarov, Emin Agalarov, the son of that oligarch. And that call is a blocked number, and we wanted to get the phone records to determine, was Donald Trump talking to his son about this meeting? It's an obvious investigative step, but one the Republicans were unwilling to take because they were afraid of where the evidence might lead.
So you're saying that in January you will be able to figure out who that blocked number was?
Yes, we'll have the investigative tools finally to compel an answer and be able to determine, okay, who was this call from? And of course, that's not the end of the story. We would also need to know what took place in that conversation between whoever the president's son was talking to as he's making arrangements to get dirt from the Russians.
Very quickly, are you troubled, or how troubled are you, by the revelation that Paul Manafort's lawyers have been in direct communication with Donald Trump's lawyers?
Well, it's very troubling because it looks like Paul Manafort is essentially a backdoor to information to the Trump legal defense team while he is going through the pretense of cooperating with investigators. He's basically double dealing. And if that double dealing was the result of dangling a pardon for Mr. Manafort, then you get into another issue, and that is the president again attempting to obstruct justice? And it would add to the body of evidence, the body of extremely concerning evidence, that the President of the United States is interfering in the impartial administration of justice and obstructing justice.
Okay, next topic. As you know, there's a Democratic leadership vote this morning, I believe at 10 a.m. Is there any way, in your mind, that Nancy Pelosi does not become the next Speaker of the House?
No. I think she's going to have a very strong vote of support today in the caucus. And what's more, she should. She should. She has kept this incredibly diverse caucus, which just got even more diverse, all on the same page. No one was more responsible for both delivering health care to tens of millions of Americans and for making sure that that didn't go away when Donald Trump was elected. She has kept us unified, and as we go into the next 2 pivotal years, there's no one better positioned to keep us all on the same page, fighting for the same things, and making sure that we speak with one voice at a time when the rule of law, our very democracy, is at risk, and so many of the things that we care about.
Well, as we understand it, even if she does clear this hurdle, there are still a dozen incoming lawmakers from Republican-leaning areas, Democrats, who say that they will oppose her in the January floor vote. Does that give you any concern?
It only gives me a concern in this way. I mean, we'll ultimately prevail in this in January, but my concern is that we don't want to be occupied by this attack on Leader Pelosi for the next several weeks. We need to be preparing for exactly what we're going to do so we can hit the ground running. This is our legislative agenda. These are the first bills we're going to introduce. These are the first areas of oversight. Here's how we're going to organize ourselves. That needs to be our focus right now. So we really do need to resolve this leadership fight today when we have the vote in caucus. And, you know, I certainly understand the intentions of those that are mounting this challenge. But at the end of the day, if the challenge doesn't succeed, and we'll know today the strength of support for Leader Pelosi, then we need to come together. We need to move on, and we need to get ready for the challenge ahead of us next.